Hi everyone, my name is Elise Wong and today I'm going to share with you a video on how I painted this Tobi Kadachi. My painting process for figurines goes more or less like this. Solid colors, I usually use a darker tone. Dry brushing, for this I usually dry brush with white followed by a lighter color. Acrylic wash, this is where I use acrylic paints and you dilute it with a little bit of water so it becomes watery. This influences the color on top of it. However, if you have acrylic inks, that will help a lot more because it's more potent in terms of pigment. However, still transparent enough that you can still see the detailings underneath. Detailing, this is usually when I use a liner brush to do small intricate parts of the model. And basing. I really love basing because I feel it adds such a beautiful narrative quality to the subject matter. So these 5 steps are a non-exhaustive list. It may differ from people to people. It may look simple, however, there is a lot of work in between. I don't always work in chronological order. Sometimes I will go dry brushing and then I will apply acrylic wash and I'll go back to dry brushing. This happens a lot in the video you can see later. I usually use dry brushing for heavily textured sculptures such as scales and fur. It helps showcase the details in a very quick manner. My fiance bought the Monster Hunter World board game and I've been having fun painting them. It was made by Steamforge and it's a very well designed game. It really feels like playing Monster Hunter on a board game. You can also view my video painting process of the Great Jagras over here. Now without further ado, here's how I painted the little monster. I start by airbrushing the entire model light blue. I wanted to experiment by giving it a green ink as a form of shadow. Unfortunately, when I dry brushed it white, it started looking like a Christmas tree. Nonetheless, I continued with my usual process, but would have to tweak the colors moving forward. There'll always be times where experiments don't result in what we want, but that's okay. I am grateful for the experience. I tried, it didn't work, fix it, and move on. Thus, I proceeded by dry brushing it blue. I later used a dark blue acrylic ink all over the model, however I didn't manage to capture it on video. I then dry brush white again to bring out the details of the scales and give it contrast and depth. The next layer of dry brushing, the white is more prominent to enhance the highlights at places where it peaked. The edges of the scales, the arch of its back, and so forth. Dry brushing is a technique where you take an old brush and pick up some paint from the source and wipe the excess on a cloth. After that, you start brushing back and forth on the model, coloring only the surface, bringing out its beautiful design and details. This usually works on detailed models such as creatures and very textured items. As for the tail, I tried to make sure I dry brush only the tip of it to show volume and layers of its long scales. I then dry brush light brown for its bottom jaw as well as its already brown colored underbelly. To give it some depth, I applied some dark brown ink so it'll seep into the crevices between its chunky scales. I then continued to dry brush light brown on the underbelly, especially the edges and the convex part of the tail. It's pretty hard to show you how I colored the eyes, so I won't comment much on it. I then colored the mouth. This was relatively simple as I didn't shade much of it. It was mostly one solid color. It also wasn't the main attraction and was a difficult angle to view from, so I strategized using my time and effort elsewhere. I start using the dark blue ink to darken certain scales as per the design of the creature. I like using the ink as it is potent enough to darken the area, but not thick enough to cover the highlights and shadings underneath. After that, I continue with the dark blue ink. After dry brushing, I start focusing on the little details such as some edge highlighting with white. This is mostly for the tail as I want it to really pop. I will do this for the parts of the monster as needed if I want to make it pop more. Dry brushing helps with accentuating the design of the figurine, however, it still cannot replace manually highlighted lines. Though I have a process, I don't follow them in chronological order. I return to my previous agenda if I feel like it, so you can see I won't finish certain things and I'll go back to it later. And with that, I added a chestnut ink at the tail like I did on the face previously, as I felt it needed more contrast. When painting the teeth, I tend to stay away from pure white as it doesn't look natural, so I always use a very light beige for bones and teeth to give it a more realistic look. I felt the chestnut ink dampened the contrast of the tail, making it look a little dull, so I decided to give it one last dry brushing of a light beige. When playing Monster Hunter World, I usually find Tobi Kadachi in the thick of the forest, so I wanted to give it a very cluttered ground with foliage. Since it enjoys climbing trees as well, I would like to show a dead log as part of it. I use Super Sculpey by flattening it with an acrylic roller. I then use a knife to slice it to my desired width, and later shaped it into a curve like a fallen log. I placed it under Tobi to see if it fits nicely. To make the veins of the tree, I use a silicone brush and a stylus ball to create indents. After sculpting it, I baked the log as per the instructions. I painted the log black as I'll be dry brushing it white to show off the texture of the sculpt. I dry brush it white, followed by brown, and added some chestnut ink for contrast, then highlighted the edge with a lighter brown. For dry brushing, I start with a dark colored foundation and build layers by dry brushing lighter colors on top. However, it can be difficult for lighter colors to shine through darker ones, so I would advise to use white as it gives a stronger look and it eliminates wasted time, and later I will lay lighter colors on top of the white. For the ground, I added PVA glue and some coffee grounds to emulate a rocky terrain. I ensure I add coffee grounds over a newspaper so I can collect any stray grounds and return it to the jar. After the glue has dried, I applied a primer so the paint will stick to it nicely. To make the log look aged, I wanted to add some moss to indicate it was left there for some time in this humid forest. I applied some PVA glue and used a tweezer to place some sponge moss on it. I dry brushed the ground white to make the texture noticeable. It really does make a difference for everything to be seen. And lastly, I wanted it to look like a realistic forest floor, so I used tea leaves to look like fallen dead leaves on the ground. That's all for today, folks. I hope you like my video. If you do, it would really mean a lot if you hit that like and subscribe button and share it to your friends who you think might find it helpful. Please let me know what other videos you'd like me to do, and I'll see if I can deliver. You can follow me on the following social media sites to keep up to date with what I'm doing. I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting me all this time. It really means a lot. Thank you so much, guys. I share videos, tutorials, and photo references for free for artists to use, so if you'd like to help make all of this sustainable, it really means a lot if you help pledge over at Patreon. You can also join my Discord server where I'm trying to create a wholesome community and get notified when I go live on Twitch. All links are down below in the video description. That's all for today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!